Hey, it's your girl Nancy Red, and this is season 3 of Mompreneurs on MadameNoire, where we celebrate beautiful Black entrepreneurs who are also amazing moms. Now, every week I chat with my guests about their businesses, their families, their inspiring journeys, and their incredible advice. Now, today is such a treat because I have not one but two entrepreneurs, actually a mother-daughter entrepreneurial duo, and they are incredible. We have mompreneur Erika Cooper. She is not only an incredible mom, she transitioned from being an educator, she is a mom, a manager of her children's careers, but also she now has her own business as chief creative officer of the Iron Eagle Collective, which is a creative production company dedicated to exploring the real lives of real people facing real issues. She also has an incredible daughter and a Spelman student, also Forbes 30 under 30, if I might add, 20-year-old Kayli-Joy Cooper. Kayli-Joy is the founder of Girl Well, which is a nationally recognized nonprofit that's making self-care more equitable and accessible to those in need. Okay, that resume is more than enough for not just two people, but like 20 people. And I'm so glad that both of you are here with us today. Welcome to Mompreneurs.
Thank
Thank
you for having
you.
us.
We're so happy to be here.
This is the first interview y'all are doing together, right, Erika?
It is. This is the first time we've done something together. I'm often either tagging along with her or she's supporting me, cheering me on, encouraging me, giving me lots of advice because she is the worldwide.
She's worldwide, she's global. but you know what? Mom has been behind the scenes global, and mom is about to be global too.
I
But
received
before you receive it, before we get too much into the business things, let's get a little personal because you and your hubby, you met when you were at Spelman and he was at Morehouse, and now your son is at Morehouse and your daughter's at Spelman, right? Tell us all about who's putting the mom in your mompreneurship.
So yes, my husband and I met when we were sophomores at Spelman and Morehouse. We've been married 23 years as of just a week or so ago. Um, we have Kayla Joy, who is our 20-year-old. She, as you mentioned, is a junior now at Spelman College and is just a career woman in her own right. I don't know how she's doing it all, but I'm so proud of her and just happy to see the way her life is flourishing and thriving as both an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, and as a full-time student with lots of responsibilities in between. And then I'm also the mom to a 19-year-old, Elijah Cooper. Some of you may have seen him on several television shows. He has been on a lot on Nickelodeon, ABC, NBC, just a bunch of different. Oh, and he starts on the CW very soon, and Disney Plus.
Goodness gracious, where is he not?
Right, not. So he has his own business as well in his space of acting and creativity and artistry. And so really my children, inspired me to become an entrepreneur as well as I was shepherding them through their processes. So it's really a full family circle.
It's a full family circle, and you have done an incredible job. For everyone listening, what's great about this is not only is she a great example of creating your own business, which we'll also talk about on transitioning careers, but also so many of us want our kids to get started early, which is exactly what both of your kids have done, Erika. Kayli-Joy, I mean, you were in high school, just came up with this incredible idea, and now you're Forbes 30 under 30. Talk to us because you were the first in your family to actively become an entrepreneur, right? Were there entrepreneurs before you?
No, there weren't. And I actually never intended to be an entrepreneur. So it's so funny that we're having this conversation now. I love every moment of it. But I think that me becoming an entrepreneur is such a great example of just believing. I mean, I personally believe in God, but whatever you believe in, just allowing that to take you into the space that you're supposed to be and trusting that, you're putting one foot in front of the other in the right way. But yeah, I was 16 when I started Girl Well, and I did a mini MBA program online. It was during the pandemic, summertime. So, I just wanted to chill and just watch TV. But my parents really encouraged me to do something that would be stimulating, of course, during the pandemic. And in addition to doing that course, I have always been an advocate of volunteerism, giving back to your community, but it's only because I was raised in that way. And that became a pillar in my life that it became evident to me quickly that while the course was for-profit businesses, I did want to think about starting a nonprofit. And so I work with my parents to take my big ideas and to bring them into a space that would fit for me. And so that's when I thought about serving undersheltered teenage girls, particularly when it comes to access to self-care. And since then, started off really with giving back to LA, giving back to my community. And we started with 60 kids. And since then, we've been able to reach tens of thousands of girls around the world. Literally, we just had some kids go to India 2 days ago. So that was very, very exciting to, see Girl Well make it all the way out there.
Oh my goodness. And
I think
it's
that,
so
can I say
Go
this
ahead,
really,
please, Erika.
Nancy, like, I think it's important for Kayli-Joy's particular journey. She mentioned it, but I think it's worth really talking about is that this is a area of passion. And as parents, we supported that passion. We didn't fund her passion, but we helped her make plans to figure out how that would happen in the beginning. And it was really just a passion project that turned into something else. But I think that goes to show the power of listening to what's inside of you. That voice is telling you where you should go, even if that falls outside of the norm, even if it's not in the lane that most people around you who look like you, who maybe are in your social circle, what have you, what they're doing, to follow that voice for you, because you really have no idea where it's going to take you. But ideas come to all of us, right? We are all constantly generating ideas, but it's what we do with those ideas. And I'm a firm believer that when the idea is placed inside of you, you gotta like make it come to pass on the earth, because if it doesn't come to pass through you, that idea has got to jump to someone else because it's a good idea. So if you don't harness it and take it and do what, is inside of your spirit, inside of your heart to do it, then it's just going to go to someone else because the idea needs to live in the world. And that's what I see happening with Girl Well.
And also that's such a testimony, and I think that's really a beautiful thing, because you don't think of it like that, right? You don't think about how precious or valuable these moments are. And when you talk about listening, that's something that sometimes it's really hard for moms to do, right? It's really hard. You've got a path. This is where it's supposed to be, and you yourself can say that this wasn't the path you were expecting for yourself, right? Like you were an esteemed educator, but then you said at the age of 32, you felt the Lord on your heart, and that was well over 10 years ago. We're not going to say how many years over 10 years ago.
Hey, I'm happy to be 46.
It's 46. So almost 15, almost 15 years ago, you felt the Lord on your heart, even though you and your husband were both doing really well in your respective careers.
Yes. I'm a first generation college goer. So first I'll say that entrepreneurship was never on my mind because, back in the 80s and early 90s, we were told like education is your way to get to whatever the next step is. And you follow these paths that have already been put in front of you. And oftentimes we can only believe we can be what we can see. And so from the community that I was raised in, most folks didn't go to college. So going to college was even like a big step for me. But certainly I was a bit, I would say, limited in what I believe that I was capable of doing. And so entrepreneurship was never even a thought for me because I was just thinking, okay, what do people do who have a college degree? And so, yeah, once I got into education, though, I realized that I had this skill set that was going to continue to promote me in this space of education. And in just a few short years, I went from teacher to assistant principal to supervising and hiring principals at the district level in a very large district with over 100,000 students. So yeah, I was on a fast track toward being a superintendent because that's what, I gone to school for this, and that's what I was going to do because, I was capable and able of doing those things. And again, goes back to when you hear this small voice inside of you that says there's something else that you're supposed to be doing. But that's oftentimes very challenging when you are moving up some sort of ladder very quickly, because to think, why would I pivot off of this thing that seems to be providing success and it seems to be, getting me accolades and in this lane where I feel comfortable. Because let me tell you, I was not comfortable with the idea of going home and being like I say just, and I put that in quotes because I'm not minimizing what I did as a full-time mom and wife. But that was never in the cards for me. But because I listened to that voice before, and I think this is important to say too, because a lot of people think that I stopped working in the outside of the home once it was clear that my kids were both, entrepreneurial or both doing something that was kind of like, I don't know the word for it, but that was kind of big, right?
They required more of your guidance and care.
Right.
Right. It was just like you're. A lot of people might think, oh, well, her kids were balling, so she just dropped everything and like focused. That was not the case.
That was not the case. My kids were like just regular old elementary and middle school kids, like everybody else's elementary and middle school kids. We going to school plays and, going to the basketball game and volleyball game on the weekend. But I listened to what was inside of me, and obviously it was meant for purpose for my children. And ultimately for me, which I didn't understand in the beginning either.
Right, because Kayli-Joy, like you had these ideas, right? You had these goals and dreams, and did you originally want to take the business class, the class on?
No, I'm so appreciative of it now, but in the moment, I was just like, it's summer break. I just want to lay on the couch and watch TV. But I'm so very grateful because that is actually what pushed me into being able to start a business and to really be able to conceptualize it. But it's so interesting because my father works corporate, but I never really thought about taking that route before. And so it really just opened my eyes to a brand new space that I knew existed, but I couldn't see myself in previous to, that time and the conversations that would take place thereafter.
So what is your advice to parents listening to this who have kids? And we hear all the time, and we experience it, Erika. So it's not like we're above it, right? I don't want to do it. Kayli-Joy, you've even admitted, here you are, this super successful businesswoman, very confident, very proud, very beautiful, very talented, doing all this, and you admit the reticence, right? What is your advice to parents who want to push their children and to nurture their children? And then follow up, Erika, with what your thoughts are. What is your advice on how to approach and get their kids going? Because oftentimes kids can't see the forest for the trees. You can't future out. You can't game out what's possible.
Yeah, I would say first hear your child because they will tell you a lot of what they want. I think that there's an idea that young people, and I run into this a lot with my business, that young people cannot see the future. They can't see what they want to do. But I mean, I knew when I was 16, I was like, I want to run a business, but I want to get back to the community. And after I did it once, I was like, well, the need is there. So I want to continue to do it. And because they heard that, they were able to support me in that way. When I went to Spelman, which is across the country, and I told them I want to continue to run my business, they heard me there. And so they helped me continue to run it, even across the country. And, now thinking about post-grad, I want to continue to run Girl Well. I want to lean more into it. I want to grow my own personal brand. Like, they hear everything that I'm saying. And so they give me the tools that they have while encouraging me to use the tools I have myself. Because a lot of it is inside of you for the children that are listening. Like, you have the tools to become whoever you want to be. And so part of your parents' responsibility is like, you put the nail in the hole. And so the nail is there, you have the nail, but like the parent's supposed to come back and just hammer it and just make sure that it's right, make sure that you're good. And that's what, I've been able to have with both of my parents.
I love that. Okay, Erika, how can parents be better hammers? Because see, that's the thing, is we both know it's the that actually is a beautiful analogy, Kayli-Joy, because so many of us, we put the nails out there, we buy the books, we put them in the classes, we put them in the sports, we like sign them up for the thing, but something happens. You have an incredible track record. I mean, honestly, you should write a book. You are so great at seeing the light in your children, coming up with a plan, but then the execution is what's missing a lot of the time. So how do you hammer these nails?
Yeah, so I practice something that's called intentional parenting. So intentional parenting is kind of based off these three tenets that what I do as a parent, first of all, I don't let parenting happen to me. I actually take parenting by the reins because early in my parenting journey, I was not taking parenting by the reins. I was kind of just in the flow, doing what all the other parents were doing, what I saw other people who I thought were successful, what they were doing. And I quickly realized that it wasn't serving my kids well. So when Kayli-Joy talks about how she describes it as her parents hearing her, I describe it more as us seeing them and understanding who they are as individuals and what drives them, what motivates them, what gets them going and gets them excited. And nurturing that thing is the most important thing I think you could ever do for your child. As Kayli-Joy said, it's not about giving them the nail or placing the nail on the pegboard, because that would be more like controlling parenting, or be more like, me cultivating something for them. I had no desire to cultivate anything for my children. I just heard what they said, and then I said, well, let's give you the best possible environment in which to do that. What you do with that is up to you. But that's the hammer part is, okay, now I'm going to provide access, opportunities, experiences. That class was because you said you wanted to do something in the community. You wanted to, start, not even start a nonprofit at that point. It was, I want to do something in the community. And so I thought, well, what better way to learn how to do something than to take a business class? So it wasn't that I said, oh, you need to take a business class because I think you're going to be a business owner. I wasn't looking down to her being a business owner. I saw her say, hey, this is a world that I want to create. And so it was my responsibility. I heard Mel Robbins recently say that responsibility is your ability to respond. I never broken that word up quite like that before, but it was my responsibility then to respond to this request she had by creating the circumstances that would allow her to thrive and be successful, whether she did that or not. Because that's also not my responsibility. My responsibility is not to run Girl Will. My responsibility is not to go out and find funders. That is, none of those things are my responsibility. I'm not taking that on, but I am going to create the circumstances under which she can do that to the best of her ability. So with intentional parenting, it's really about being values-based, thinking of what the long-term outcomes are, not just the short-term, but the long-term outcomes, and then also being super purposeful. So I think that's what the hammer is for me, is that intentionality.
Kayli-Joy, talk about that, because I'm sure there were times, particularly in the beginning, where like, oh, can you do this for me? Oh, I want to do this, but like I don't have time, blah, 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 blah. How can parents thread that needle of being supportive, being encouraging, but also making sure that you are doing the work?
Yes. My parents never let me not do the work. I mean, I think my perspective is maybe a little bit unique. We've met a lot of parent-child entrepreneurial duos where the parent is doing the work and then the child is kind of more the face. And that was just never our dynamic.
That wasn't an option.
No, it wasn't. No. And I knew that. I knew that from the beginning. My parents, since I've been very, very young, I tell this story a lot to people, is that my parents let me do whatever I wanted to do when it came to like sports and extracurriculars growing up. But their one rule was that I couldn't quit. So at one point, I think I was doing like gymnastics and or like it was like cheer and soccer and maybe something else. And I was so overwhelmed. And my parents were like, well, you can't quit because when you start something, you need to finish it. And so because I had that foundation moving into starting a nonprofit, I knew like, okay, like things are getting hard, but don't quit, keep going. Things do get easier. And, I think the intentionality portion of it is just reminding your child that they are capable of achieving their dreams, but reminding them that they are in control of making those dreams come true. So at the end of the day, you can give them the contact, but it's up to them to establish and maintain a relationship with them in order to further whatever they want to do in their life.
I want to say a quick caveat too, is that you can't quit this season. You don't have to do it next season.
That's true, yeah.
But you can't quit this season. You can't quit in the middle of this. You
yeah.
can pivot later and say, that wasn't for me. I figured out that wasn't for me, but here are the skills I gained from it. Here are the lessons I learned from it. Here's what I could take with me to this next thing. It's okay not to do that this next go round. But once you've committed yourself to something, then your word is who you are. Your word has got to be what you stand on. And if you don't, then people aren't going to trust you or believe you to do anything else. I'm not going to trust you or believe you to do anything else. And so I think that that's a really important distinguishing nuance with the don't quit. You can't quit in the middle. You got to like finish this season of it. And then you want to move on.
Yeah. Which I did a lot, but
a lot.
I had to finish. I had to finish. And I remember there was one specific season in soccer where they moved my position, and I was running a lot more than like I was the season before. And I just was like, I want to quit. Like I would literally, we would pull up to where we would play soccer, and I'd just be like, oh my gosh, like here we go again. But I learned really great lessons then. And now, like my mom said, I do pivot when is necessary, but I see everything through.
I love the sports analogy. It's totally accurate. Also, that's so funny. I literally just had a fight with my daughter about the importance of running. I don't like to run. Well, you gotta run. So I feel your running pain in soccer. And sports is a big deal in your household growing up. Like, Erika, both of your kids were into sports. And actually, it's one of the reasons that your son might be so successful. What made you see in Elijah the possibility of being an actor, and how did that come about? Because it came about organically, but also it came about because one of the things that he was really great at kind of fell apart.
That's true. So sports were a big deal. Kayli-Joy was on a travel volleyball team, so we were traveling all around the United States. This volleyball team.
Anytime you say travel, that like that took up all of your time, but it was also fun.
Every single weekend for months on end, because she did travel ball, then she did school ball, then she did club ball. So it was all year was full of volleyball, and 2/3 of the year was us traveling to other places outside of our home area for her to play volleyball. And at the same time, our son was Elijah was very much so into basketball, but he was injured and had to sit out a season.
And how old was he?
He was in 4th grade. So I can say he was in 4th, however old that is. He was in 4th grade. I remember
like 9-ish year old. 9.
Yeah. It's a very
just when things are starting to get good, just when like it starts to get into the travel and the
right. So he had to sit out. It was really a season and a half, and so then he couldn't join in the second part of that season. Well, it just so happened that there was one of the things that Kayli-Joy has mentioned is that we always tell our children you have to be doing something, and you get to choose what that something is, but you need to be doing something to stretch your mind, to dig into something either to stretch you or to dig into something that you already, know that you have a passion for. And so we happened to have lived around the street from a acting studio. We lived in Atlanta at the time. And the kids, Kayli-Joy was out of season at that moment, which was very rare that she was ever out of season.
My team lost, and it was just like, okay, now find something else to do. But
so it left both of them with the opportunity to go to this acting school that was around the corner. And so we did that, and within like a couple of months, there was a casting director who did a workshop with them, and he came back and asked if the kids could audition for a commercial. Now, I was an educator. My husband was corporate. That was not our world. It was not a world in which we ever thought we'd be living in or even thinking about. But the opportunity presented itself, and we had to look at the opportunity for what it was. So we said yes. And honestly, the rest is history at that point. I didn't know enough to say no. I didn't know enough to vet people at the time. I didn't know anything because it wasn't my world. But because we had this guide, which we call the Holy Spirit, who was kind of moving us in the places to go, it moved us right on into an agent that ended up being a legit person. Thank you, Lord. Because it could have gone real left.
Yes.
It could have gone real left.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have known any better. Which led us to a more intensive acting school. which led to, within months, Elijah booking his first movie. And Kayli-Joy realizing that really what she wanted to do was behind the scenes. So we haven't talked about that part of her life either, is that she's a budding filmmaker. So she's studying documentary filmmaking in school. But that small pivot in our life actually led to how you see our family operate today. Because had Elijah not had that injury and gone to that school and realized that he was actually a really good actor, and we had no idea he even had that talent. We knew that he liked to entertain like us at home, but you think like all kids, like they're dancing and they're, can I do a talent show? Your kid, Mama, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. But I didn't think a whole lot about that until it was clear that this was a talent that he had. And being behind the scenes was a passion that she had with directing, producing, and writing. And long story short, that led our family to move to Los Angeles. And now we are all kind of thriving in this environment. But it's because we listened and we saw and we made a pivot based off that, as opposed to saying, well, this is the direction we were going, so let's just keep going that direction, even though we see these signs all around us that say move to another direction.
Kayli-Joy, what was that like to have the support? Because sometimes we think, okay, well, should we listen to these large ideas that are coming to our head for small children? Talk about the importance of seeing large things in small people.
Yeah. Well, first I'll start off by saying the reason that we went to the acting studio was because my brother and I thought we were going to be like YouTube famous. Because I mean, you think like at the time, like this is like pre-TikTok, like we didn't have Instagram, so we were like, oh, like YouTube is what it's gonna be. And I uploaded all these like videos of me baking and with my friends and stuff, and I didn't blow up, and thank God, because I needed a little bit more time before people got to know me like that. But that is actually what led my parents to looking for something that was kind of similar. And so that was acting, And so again, that's just another example of like my parents seeing us try our best with something that the videos they're blurry, the sound is bad, like nothing is really great about it except for like the talent and except for what me and my brother were doing. And my parents always encouraged us. Like even then, I didn't know that I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I would edit all the videos that my brother and I did. And my parents would tell me all the time, like, you're so good at this. Like, where did you learn this? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was just playing around and it worked. And so, or like, I went on YouTube. It always comes back to YouTube. I went on YouTube and like, I looked it up and, they taught me how to do it. And so even before I even knew that I had a passion there, I was still being nurtured in a way. And so then when it was time to move out to LA, I think at that point I really decided that in addition to, well, at that point I wasn't running my business. So I wanted to pursue filmmaking and writing and directing. And they were very supportive of that, which I wouldn't say that I was surprised about, but also like my parents were the first to go to college in our families on both sides. And no one had done anything in the arts before, and neither of my parents were artists. So they had these two kids who wanted to go into this space that was unconventional. And, I had my parents' full support, which I can't even say like I saw other kids around me that were pursuing the same things have that support as well. So I was very blessed.
I hear a lot of positive reinforcement. Erika, talk about the intentionality of that, because it's not like you're just like, oh, you're great. Oh, good job. Oh, great. Talk about how you approach the way you speak to your children and way you speak into your children and the intentionality behind that.
Right. So we are incredibly honest too, but that's one of our values, is to be honest. So there were things that our children tried along the way. Kayli-Joy mentioned that we encouraged them to try. We encouraged them to try anything that they wanted to try. Again, don't quit in the middle of it, but you can try it. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's fine. We were also very honest about the things that they were not gifted in, because they're not gifted in everything. And I think that we live in a society today where everyone gets a participation trophy. And we don't believe in our home in participation trophies. we can say, good job, you tried. You don't really get a trophy for this. Just because you tried doesn't mean you get a trophy for it. It just means now you have more insight into things that you either need to develop or things that are not for you and you need to outsource, right? And so part of the intentionality is the honesty around those things that they are not particularly skilled at, and that are not their lanes. And it's okay to tell your children that. You will not kill their spirit. You can have the conversation in love and with compassion. For example, let's get back to this whole volleyball situation. At some point, we realized this girl was going to be 5'6".
Yeah.
We're like, you're not going to be a volleyball player. That's not going to happen long term. It's just not. Do you see these girls? Let's look at the TV. You see the girls on the Olympics who are volleyball players? They're all over 6'1". You're not going to be that. Yeah. So this is not going to be your area of life. But what we can do at this point is that if this is something that you do and that it's fun for you, we can continue to have this outlet for fun, but this won't be how we spend the majority of your time while we're figuring out how to best increase your skill set toward whatever your outcomes are going to be in life. And so I think that intentionality has to come with the honesty, and so many times now parents are not honest with their kids because they're afraid of breaking them, and they won't break.
They will bounce. That's so important. I think that's your kids are a testament to that working, right? And that happened to me as well. When I was in 5th grade, I haphazardly scribbled my little 4-H speech. It was a mandatory thing. I wrote it on cat care. It was your classic cat care 4-H speech. It was a competition. My mom came. I gave my horrible speech poorly. And I remember going and sitting next to her while the other kids were going up. And I whispered, she's like, Mom, do you think I'll win? And she's like, no, you will not win. That was subpar. And I was devastated. And of course I did not win. But you want to know who came back the next year and took a month on her speech and won the whole state competition? And you have to have those moments. Kayli-Joy, I'm sure it was devastating to hear. I'm 5'6", probably not going to be volleyball star, but without carving out that space, you wouldn't be who you are now in the lane that was meant for you.
Yes, it was devastating. I mean, I kind of knew something was going on because I originally was an outside hitter, which is like one of the tallest people on the court. And then they made me a setter, and you can kind of be like middle height and be a setter, but then they made me a libero, and that's the shortest person on the team. And at that point, I wasn't even through high school, so I was like, oh no, this is bad,
But some people won't see the writing on the wall, or they're just like hoping for a miracle.
Yeah, I knew my miracle wasn't coming because I haven't grown since 7th grade, so I would say I enjoyed it, and like my mom said, it's a hobby, and I also play with my friends from time to time, and it's cool, and it reminds me of my volleyball glory days. But I would say sometimes you have to go down a new path, and it's okay, and it's very scary. And I mean, mine was a little bit less scary than obviously my mother's with her career, but it was time for something new, and I had to understand that just because I'm seeing other people do it, because I have friends that went and played volleyball in college and want to do that professionally. Just because it was for them doesn't mean it was for me.
I think that's what she said. She made a really good point there, which is that it wasn't as high stakes for her as a middle school volleyball player, but then it becomes more high stakes when you're talking about leaving your career. But you don't get the courage and the wisdom to do that if you don't learn it earlier enough when you're in middle school, that it's okay to say, this is no longer for me, I can pivot. So really, our approach to parenting them and to supporting them through all of their many endeavors that have led them to the careers they have now is to provide for them the skills that they're going to need as adults, as children, because we are, I think so many of us raise kids and we treat them like little kids for far too long, when in fact, what we need to be doing is thinking about who they will be as adults. and then creating systems around them so that they start learning the skills that you want them to have as an adult, but at an age appropriate level.
Absolutely. Yes, yet another chapter. And then here you are. You have made the space. Girl Well took off once you got it together. At what point did you realize that what you had created wasn't just something that was a one-off, a beautiful one-off for 60 people, which is great. This is how everything begins, right?
Yeah.
You start with the 60. At what point did you realize I have created an international movement? I have created an actual substantial nonprofit organization that is changing the lives and the mindset of individuals worldwide.
I think I've had a lot of those kind of pinch me moments. I would say about a year in, I reached 365 girls my first year, and I was so proud of myself because I was like, that means that if every single day of this year, from the time that I started it to today, like a girl would receive a kit if one girl got one every day. And I was like, oh, like this is so cool. And I just thought it was cool. I was like, again, like this is just this passion for me. Like this is what I want to do. And then in the second year, we saw again a lot of growth from 365 to 1,000. And I was like, okay, like this is picking up, like I was starting to get interviewed for what I was doing, but again, it was still kind of small. It was not what I assumed that I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And when I decided that I want to continue this in college, I realized just how passionate I was about it. And to be able to hear from some of the girls that received the first 60 kids, I think that was really when it hit me. Um, there's one girl in particular that I'm thinking about, and she's the first to go to college in her family. And she said that getting a girl kit allowed her to believe in herself. And it was just really special because, I remember meeting her on Zoom when we were both 16 and talking about like, oh, like, college is soon. This is kind of scary. And to see, what she's been able to do and how she's been able to flourish was so inspiring. And then in the last 2 years, Girl has really blown up. And so it's gone from, like you said, just a passion project to a movement, getting lots of Gen Z involved. And we have a volunteer group me that's huge. And people all the time are like, what can I do to help you? Like, how can I support you? We want to pack kits. We want to do this. And then even having people ask me to speak at all of these places based on the work that I've done. Like this past year, I spoke at Harvard. A couple weeks ago, I spoke at Empire State Building. So it's just been crazy. Like, I'm so grateful though. But at the end of the day, I think the reason that I am inviting all of this good energy into this is because I haven't lost sight of the passion. Like it still is a passion project at the end of the day. Yes, it's now a career for me, but it's still a passion. I want to make self-care equitable. Like I want all girls to know how loved and how valued they are, because that's something that, I struggled with internally, not because of my parents, but I mean, my generation has social media. Like we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. We're constantly questioning our worth based on interactions that we have with people at school or interactions that we have on social media. And I know the power of self-love and what it's been and how it's been transformative for me. So to be able to get that now to tens of thousands of girls here in the US, outside of the US, in 2025, we have so many people who want kids all around the world now. And, I'm like, let's do it. Let's go.
You're going. You're in India. This is incredible.
Yes.
And now 3 out of 4 of your household, Erika, has a business. Your son is an entrepreneur. He's with his acting career and entertainment. You've
He also
got
has a clothing line.
and a clothing line. What's the clothing line called?
It's called
What?
Tints.
It's called what?
Tints, Tints.
Okay,
Tints
all
Streetwear.
right. I didn't. When did this come about?
He's a co-founder. So it was founded by another 16-year-old, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then she asked Elijah to come alongside her and run the business. And so now he has a business in which he's been able to pitch his clothes on the television shows that
Shark Tank?
No, on the television shows that he's in. So
Oh,
he's wearing his own clothing line in
okay.
some of the scenes that you see him in on TV.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. Okay. And so then here you are, your kids are entrepreneurs, and now you got the bug. Talk to us about what you're doing with Iron Eagle Collective.
Yeah, so Iron Eagle Collective, what I recognized as I was managing my children's careers was that I had a skill set that was unique, and that really, in the same way, I used to say I was Ozing with Wicked out right now. It's an interesting analogy. I was Ozing my kids' lives, like kind of like giving them the inspiration and the power to do all these things, that I could do that for myself. And recognizing that the skills that I had as an educator were transferable into this space of production and content. And in particular, content around real people, content around parenting, and things that I was passionate about. So it goes directly back to what Kayli-Joy just talked about. And it's really this full circle moment when you start learning from your kids, because you always think of yourself as their teacher, or people say, oh, we're co-learning, but do they really mean that? I don't know if they mean that all the time. But right now, I am learning so much from my kids' journey that I can apply to my own. And that has been just incredibly special. So, really, what I noticed is that there's this gap in the market. Like, we see so much of these reality shows, or even narrative, like theatrical stuff, around like big famous stars or people who have like these extraordinary lives. But I think that real people want more real stories that they can see themselves in, that they can identify with. Aspirational stories are great, but also people are living real everyday lives, and they want to see people like them reflected on their television sets. So with Iron Eagle Collective, we're kind of multifaceted. So right now we're developing a television show, which I'm super excited about, my very first television show in development. Also pitching some documentary work, where we actually talk to real people out in the world and get their stories of their everyday lives, and how that looks the same, how that looks different, how that brings people together, how that repels people from each other. And then in addition to that, starting communities that are related to real people. So I have a community group around intentional parenting, where people get to talk to each other who don't know each other, who may be from very different parts of the country or maybe even the world, who have a similar outlook and philosophy on life, but they needed to find community in order to really be able to live that out, and just get some back and forth communication with people who believe and live like they do. And these people come from very different walks of life, from very different races, from different religions, different cultures, but they all have the same desire, which is to intentionally raise their children. So
And
that's what Iron Eagle Collective
it's a
is.
collective.
It is
It's
a
collective. It's
collective,
collected.
and it sounds like they're disparate things, but they're all centered around this idea of what are everyday people experiencing, and how do we make their lives better.
Yeah.
Well, and most importantly, with the community that you build, that's important because I mean, we've had conversations where it's basically we had no idea the mistakes we have made, the troubles we have seen, the struggles that were unnecessary.
Yeah.
Why is it important to you that as part of what you're doing? Because you don't have time, neither of y'all have time, no one in your family has any time to waste on shenanigans. So, why is it important for you to build this community, to spend time pouring into creating an opportunity for other like-minded individuals to connect?
I think it's what you said before, is that I didn't have those blueprints. My background is not one where people have done what I'm even doing now. So in many ways, my husband and I stumbled through so much of what we've done. We took a little bit of this blueprint here, and a little bit of this blueprint here, and a little bit of this blueprint here, and tried to make something that made sense. And we've been, relatively successful in that. But it didn't have to take all that, like, midnight crying and 3-hour sessions trying to figure this out, when there are other people who maybe have experienced maybe not the same exact thing, but something similar, who could have provided insight. And like, to be just completely honest with you, I constantly get calls about my children and what we did. Like, how did you do this? How did you do that? And while I don't ascribe to this idea that I can give you the advice and you can follow the same things I did and get the same outcomes, this is not like, Betty Crocker mix. That's not what it is. This is a real individual. He is a real individual. We have real life circumstances, but there are some philosophies and some basic tenets and values that drive this. And I think that being in community, if I had this community, I would have saved a lot of time. And so I wanted to create something that would do that for other people, particularly the ones who were already asking me questions anyway. And I'm like, hey, listen, I don't know that, but I know this other person who does, and I can connect you with that person. So this becomes like this, an environment for connection, because we're all at the heart of all of us, we're looking for connection, in one way or another. And so that's a part of why Iron Eagle Collective exists. Is to provide those connection points so people don't feel alone, and they can see themselves and what they are capable of and what's possible for them.
Oh, I love that. Kayla-Joy, when you think about what your mother is doing, she's building this community so that others can have children as precious and polite and successful and talented and thoughtful and humble and as you and your brother. Do you think that what your mother is talking about and what your mother has done is replicable? And if so, how? What do you think is the not so secret ingredient in what has allowed you and your brother to prosper?
Well, one, I watched my mom build the community that she wanted and that she needed, that she didn't have. Like, I mean, my parents just kind of figured it out with us, and it worked, which is great. But it, to me, it's really, I admire that she is taking what she learned and the mistakes that she learned and telling other people, like, do this, but don't do this, because this is where I stumbled, and this is where you can maybe step over the block that I didn't see. And so it's been really cool to watch her do that. And I mean, even through college, like, there's still people who will ask her all the time, like, about me and what I do and how I'm able to do it and balance it all. But I think the not so secret ingredient is, I mean, it comes from the kid. I'm not even going to lie to you, because at the end of the day, it's your life. And your parent can tell you every day, show up and do this and whatever. But if you don't have the passion there yourself, then it's really meaningless, because one day it's going to fall apart and you're going to just be like, actually, I don't want to do this. I never wanted to, and you forced me to do it. And so now I've been doing it every day. And now there's probably a little bit of resentment there, because you have forced me to spend time doing things that I don't want to do when I could have been exploring my passion. And now I'm left with nothing, because instead of taking time to find what I want, I've been living your life for you. And so that leaves a lot of people lost. And unfortunately, I have some friends that have dealt with that themselves and are going through a little bit of a transition period to find out who they actually are. But because my parents let me pursue my own passions, I've had a good sense of self since I've been very young, and it has really helped me become and stay successful.
That is beautiful.
I
And
agree.
we none of us want to have the children resent us. Like, that is the worst case scenario. You pour into a child. And you, Erika, have excellent tips and tricks on how to make sure that what you're pouring into the child comes back tenfold versus comes back to bite you in the bottom.
That's right. But I think Kayla-Joy just hit the nail on the head, is that
Hit the nail.
Who's becoming the hammer? I thought Mama was the hammer.
I know she thinks I want to be like her, but
It's because she does, but it's fine.
come on. But I think she like could not have said it more beautifully, which is that you let your child lead you. So many parents are leading their children into this space that they want their children to go into, or that they are vicariously living through their children because they didn't have the means, the time, the access to do those things when they were younger. And so here we are, we're going to create this, for you, or cultivate this experience that we want you to have, as opposed to hearing their hearts and seeing them as as people, authentic people, unique people within themselves who have agency and who are the experts of themselves. I don't think we give kids enough, we don't give them enough grace and we don't give them enough credit for knowing themselves. And there may be things that we see as parents from, a more mature lens that will help them. Like, for example, the mini MBA program, right? She couldn't see that she needed some support. Like, you can't just go willy nilly out there doing something. You need some plans and you need some strategy. And so we're going to put you in this little program to help you kind of think through that a little bit. But parents, instead of giving them those tools that are following their lead, they're leading their kids into where to go. And that becomes a detriment. And it does create resentment. Just Kayli-Joy is in the middle of making a decision about something right now. And she called me just yesterday because she was not here beside me yesterday. She was across the country.
Yes.
She called me. She said, I want your opinion on this. And so my opinion does not lean toward where her own opinion on this subject is. And what I said to her was, thank you for listening to my opinion. You don't have to do what I said to do, because ultimately this is your life, it's your decision, and you're going to have to live with whatever it is that you choose to do. But I appreciate you for just taking a moment to hear the wisdom and then deciding how to make that applicable to your own decision-making matrix. And I think that if we raise kids who are based in values and who understand themselves, then we trust them and respect them to make good decisions for themselves ultimately. And that leads to a good relationship between you and your child.
Erika, you so classy. You like decision matrix. That's a lot better than be like, look, you gonna do what you gonna do, but you can't say I ain't tell you, because maybe that's what I say. I'm not going to claim it.
That's what I used to say too.
This is that EDD coming out, like decision matrix. I'm sorry, Kayla. I'm sorry, you were weighing in there, sweet girl.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, thinking back to that example, my mom gave me her opinion and what she thinks, not necessarily that I should do. I kept asking her. I'm a little bit indecisive, so I'm always asking her, like, what should I do? What should I wear? What should I eat? What should I? And she's just like, come up with the decision on your own. I've never understood that, but like I understand it now in these moments where like I need to make a big decision. And so, it's up to me with the decision that I make, and maybe it's not a great decision because sometimes you don't make good decisions for yourself and you make your life very, very hard and a lot more intense than it needs to be. But again, you'll get through that season and you'll continue to walk forward from there. And I don't believe in regret, but you'll learn a lesson for sure. But also at the same time, like I've never limited myself because of fear of what could possibly be, because I don't want to live a life where I wonder, like, what would have happened if I would have tried X, Y, and Z, or sent that email or asked for, with Girl Well for some product. Like you never know. So life is full of ups and downs. So, you're never going to keep going up. That would be pretty boring, actually. If you think about it, like you need some moments to kind of come down. It's like when I'm going to do another one. When you read a book, you're not reading the book so that your character just keeps progressing up and up and up and up and up. Like, that's great. But it's just like, where is the drama? Like, where is the story? Where's the plot line? The character needs to make a mistake to learn a lesson at the book. It needs to come together. And so I think of my life like that too. Just that, sometimes you got to have chapters where it's a little low, but come back up,
Gotta have a cliffhanger. Exactly. Gotta have a cliffhanger. Otherwise, like, what is this? Yeah. Oh, okay, you guys, our time is almost up, but I can't let you leave without participating in my favorite segment, which I call Mompreneurs Manifestation, where I ask each of our guests, and I'll start with you, Kayli-Joy, with what you're trying to make happen, what you're hoping comes next or in the future for you, and how we can help to bring it into the universe.
Oh my gosh. I have so many goals right now. I'm like,
so many goals.
Share.
And so much time to accomplish all of them.
No, right? I would say I am moving into a space where I'm defining my own brand as Kayli-Joy, the entrepreneur, but also just as Kayli-Joy myself. And so stepping into that, continuing to do speaking engagements, starting activations, just based on my own brand, while also supporting Girl Well and seeing our reach continue to grow. I mean, we tripled our growth every year, and while that won't happen forever, it's a fun goal to set. So we were able to reach right under 10,000 girls this year, and I would love to reach 30,000 girls next year. Maybe it'll happen. Hopefully it will happen. But being connected with the right people in the right spaces to reach all of the girls in need. Those are my next couple of goals.
I love that. What about you, Miss Erika?
So as I, am transitioning now into my own entrepreneurship, my goal is to, in the next few years, I hope that you will see my television show on TV. That's first. And I also hope to just continue to cultivate a community that is able to see themselves and to thrive, and to understand the importance of their role and their purpose and their space in this world, not just as a parent, but as a human being who has gifts to offer.
I love that. You guys are the best mother-daughter duo. I'm so in awe, and you're so inspiring, and I really appreciate you joining us today. Kayli-Joy, starting with you, can you tell us where we can find all your stuff? Then Erika, you're going to have to hold it down for you and your son.
Yes, I would love to connect with you personally. My Instagram, I'm young, so I'll go with that first. My Instagram is just my name, Kayli-Joy, Kaylijoy. And then for Girl Well, we have an Instagram as well, of course. And it's girlwell.org, GIRLWELLORG. But if you're interested in donating or just reaching out to maybe partner, you can reach out through our website, which is girlwell.org.
You can reach out to me personally on both TikTok and Instagram at Erika N. Cooper, so ErikaNCooper. And the community that I'm building is on Facebook, and it's called Intentional Parents, Excellent Kids. Come join us.
And Elijah's.
Oh, and Elijah.
See, that's the intentional parent with the excellent kid.
So my son can be reached on Instagram at Real Elijah M. Cooper. And I think he's the same thing over on TikTok. And then Tents Streetwear on Instagram is his streetwear line.
I love it. Oh, such excellent kids, such intentional parenting. You all are the best of the best. Thank you so much for joining us today as an incredible mother-daughter entrepreneurial duo.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for listening and watching to Mompreneurs. As a reminder, a brand new episode goes live each Monday on Urban One Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit urban1podcasts.com to see more. That's urban1podcasts.com. Mompreneurs is brought to you by the Urban One Podcast Network and MadameNoire. Created, produced, and hosted by me, Nancy Red. Executive produced by Allison McGovna and Tanya Hoffler-Moore. Produced and edited by Jiminique Miller.